going live.
Right, so I should get the Streamplace thing up because that's where we should say that Streamplace is where to ask us, is where you should ask questions, is where
Yep.
people should ask
Okay.
questions.
Feed is live. Go ahead and um, add that as a reply.
Yeah, okay. Do. Hi, everyone. We are live, but I am still posting. Always be posting.
Always be posting.
Okay.
All right. So we got that. That's muted. I need to get our feeds up. Hi, everybody. We are vamping for a minute while we get things set up. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Jonesy. Cool. All right. Now I can tear these out. Whoop. It's still got the weird bug. That's too bad. Okay, well, that's bummer. Can I just... No, that's not going to do. So, all right, we'll just do this. How's it going, everybody? Hey, Tris.
Hey ho. Okay, right.
For today's show, we're going to be using Black Sky exclusively as the interface for notifications and replies. Oh, I suppose I should actually log in with the right account.
Yeah,
Can
there
we
you
do
go.
multiple accounts there? Because it's logged in my personal account right now. All right, give me 2 seconds. Doop. Add another account. So, Dan, how's your week been?
It's been pretty interesting, Ted. I have kicked off another cohort for my workshop series, which is all about which helps teams who make software better because they need to work with other people. So it's all about how to understand and work with other people so that you get the information that you need, the information that they need, and everyone make sure that they're building the right thing.
And what type of software are you thinking about?
Well, right
Or is it
now I'm
any software?
working, it's any software because it turns out that whenever you're building software, even if you're building software with AI, even when you're vibe coding, another human is going to have to use it. So inherently, even if you're building software on your own, it helps if you understand other people, if you understand their motivations, because you're going to need to get along with them,
Yeah.
even if you're Linus.
Someone who's famous for getting along well with other people.
Right, right. Or rather,
Yeah.
even if you have to work with Linus.
I guess it's actually been 2 weeks. So I should ask how your fortnight's been more than anything else, right?
Well, I got to hang out with Skylar Earle, which was fantastic because apparently we know a lot of the same people.
Uh-huh.
And we talked about so much stuff. I learned about what he's doing with that at Proto, with at Geo, which is the geolocation spec for at Proto at the protocol layer. I got to hear some, I got to understand his frustration about the lack of a good about the lack of good geolocation data types at the protocol layer, which is in some ways a remarkable miss for a modern social protocol. And is also something that needs to exist or would be very helpful to exist at the protocol layer rather than at the lexicon layer.
Oh,
Uh,
that's an interesting take. Say more. Why? Or maybe we should have Skylar come on at some point and talk about
yeah, we should have scholars. So my very naive understanding is for when you are talking about and storing latitudes and longitudes, then first don't use floats. I understand is what's been learned,
it.
but instead use a decimal format.
Mm.
And we don't have those as a data type in AT Proto. So the shim, unfortunately, would be to use strings and then have to be very careful about the specs and then figure out how you can validate strings and everything. So that is not preferable,
Yeah.
makes it harder for everyone.
Well, I'm going
So
to keep coming back to my. Um, it's remarkable that any of this works. First
yes,
thing,
yes,
which we
and
say about all technology. Yeah,
we're grateful that it's there as well.
yeah, and also the fact that like at Proto as a protocol stack, or really a set of interconnected standards, right?
Yep.
Uh, has manifested certain things into being social media platforms being one of them with Blue Sky. But the question
Hmm.
really is, what other sorts of things can be built on it? And yeah, there are going to be some parts that probably will need to be modified and updated to accommodate more use cases.
And that opens up an entire can of worms that you and I have been talking about for a long time, and that you also have been talking about for a long time, which is practically speaking, then, how do changes to the app proto spec get made? Which opens up questions about governance, which opens up questions about Blue Sky, the public benefit company, Blue Sky, the PBC, um, how it runs things, and its position as the kind of the de facto, gorilla in the room for how things work, and as the operator of all of the infrastructure, mainly, right?
Yeah, I think that there's a bunch of things. I'm clearly missing posts that Patrick has found, and we got to go find out what Boris has been doing. But
Boris has a plan for how governance is going to work, I believe.
Yeah, of course he does. Well, actually, and that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about. And one of the full disclosure to everyone, I'm part of the App Proto Community Fund with Boris and Nick Derakinas, and part of um, the reason why we started the community fund is to have a community, right? Like part of Blue Sky's whole messaging is um, their fundamental promise with what they're trying to do as a company is that exit to community is always part of their mission and the reason why they operate. But in order to do that, you do need a credible community actually to exit to. And so the community fund is in part to make sure that we actually have the shape of the thing that we want as a community outside of what Blue Sky says that they want or that they need. And so part of that actually is governance, more broadly speaking. And one of the
Right.
interesting tensions with all of this is that you could take different models for technical governance, and when we talk about governance, that can mean a whole bunch of different things. And some of these are technical governance, in terms of like standards and standardization. Some of it's actually network operations
Yep.
and the community of people who are running servers or services, and are responsible to users in a variety of
Yep.
different ways. And those
Pro
relationships are a
tip:
little bit different.
whenever something happens with the internet, then I like hanging out and lurking on the Nanog mailing list to see who is freaking out and what they're freaking out about.
Okay, so you are another person who has heard of Nanog. Boris mentioned it a long time ago, and that's part of the model that he's talked about. I'm like, I guess this is the thing I've heard of before, but like, I don't know anybody who's ever used it. So thank you for being another person who pays attention to Nanog.
Only when it looks like they might be freaking out about something.
Yeah. Um,
And
right, but
Nanog is, we should probably tell people who
oh,
don't
sure.
know, if we're the three people we know who talk about it.
There you go. We can pull it up. Working together to build the internet of tomorrow. Um, do they? Oh yeah, here's an
So
about page.
it's the mailing list for the people who run, for the actual people who have operational responsibility for all the networks that we rely on at like each of the telcos and the like level whatever carriers, level three carriers, level whichever carriers.
Yeah, and like this is another thing to think about in terms of like one of our fundamental sins in the technology ecosystem is Steve Jobs like it's magic, right? He's like, no, it's not fucking magic, or you have to really buy the any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But like, actually, if it feels magical, it's still built on technology that we need to understand and make sure that it's like magic that's ethically being used as opposed to like the movie The Prestige, right?
Right.
Um, and so things like Nanog are actually super interesting as one of the levels at which people kind of coordinate. And when we talk about things like experiencing social media, right? Like, what level are we talking about? It's like the app experience that you've got, or is it like the interconnection and the way that who is guaranteeing that your messages are being sent back and forth, and you and I are having the same experience at the same time as we're, participating.
For example,
So,
email.
yeah,
You know that you know for various values of you and no, you know that if you send an email, then it's going to get received by the person who you send it to, unless you are trying to send email by yourself through your own infrastructure
yeah.
and you're trying to get it delivered to any of the big three or the big four. Now, they all presumably talk to each other because they want to make sure that their mail gets delivered to the other, top three, four destinations or hosted destinations. But it's that kind of how do we make sure that we can still talk to each other when we're supposed to be able to talk to each other?
Yeah, and this is one of the really interesting things I think about this particular moment in social media, and I think distrust of social media and distrust of centralized systems, because of the fact that um, there is, when we talk about the way that the internet's been built, there is a fundamental assumption about peering and about cooperating and interoperation that is coming apart a little bit at the seams at a like macro global political level.
Yeah.
When we're talking about like splinter nets and the ways in which particular national governments are able to control their domestic internets, whether that's the Great Wall of China, Great Firewall of China, or whether that is uh,
Nepal, like within the last 72 hours.
right. And so like the problem is ultimately that like there isn't an overarching consensus now about the way that the internet should work, and that it should just be open and free and unregulated. I think for a bunch of very good reasons, right? But part of the response to that is not just at the national geopolitical level, but actually the way that decentralized alternatives look as well. And I think that there are different models for the way that the operational governance works, as well as everything other things. And some of that gets lost a little bit in the weeds when we're talking about
Yeah.
decentralized social media. I'm going to spend like, let's talk about the protocol
We
wars
have
for five
yeah.
minutes, and
Right.
that's it. Okay.
Right. I'm
And
setting a timer.
yeah, please do. Because I think this is one of the key things that gets tied up in the like, particularly the argument between. No, actually, we'll do all three. ActivityPub, AppProto, and Noster, right? Because
Yeah.
you could say that like Jack Dorsey is basically staking the Noster community, and why is he doing that? He's doing that because he doesn't like the way that Blue Sky has done moderation. Okay, so that's interesting. Um, uh, the ActivityPub model and the way that Mastodon works has a certain philosophy about the way that peering works and the way that you should be able to interoperate. And one of the crazy things is servers can block other servers.
Yeah.
And that is a model of agreeing not to agree that I think actually is an interesting deviation from the way that the internet, broadly speaking, has kind of worked.
No, black hole lists and email server operators.
Kinda, but like I think that like and actually
I'm using up your time.
no, this is actually important, right? When do you verge from spam or antisocial behavior into things I don't like, right? And
Right.
this is one of the major issues in terms of negotiating the way that the Fediverse is actually going to fundamentally work, and who is it acceptable to peer to and connect to in a way that like can those be decoupled or not, or the way that those politics actually do permeate all of those levels. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the really tough parts.
Usenet
Um,
servers.
yeah, in part. And so like is the dream that you can connect to everyone or not? And who gets to
Right.
decide that? I think is one of the really tough parts about each Mastodon server kind of being its own little bubble, and like you can get on there and communicate with the people who are in that network, but like not potentially to other parts of the network. And your visibility into what's available and out there is actually relative to the server that you're on, which is a set of guarantees. And one of the key differences with the set of guarantees that like at Proto gives you, which
Yeah.
is some guarantee that you actually get a globally visible sense of what's going on. And that actually has product implications. So, for example, we have the App Proto feed, and everybody on Blue Sky or in the App Proto network can actually see more or less all of the discussion about App Proto stuff. And that's just like not a thing really if you were to think about that in the activity pub world, because
Yeah,
the set of posts that you get is just the like peers
yeah,
that you
just
directly
your
know.
local bubble. Yeah,
Right. So
you've got
anyway,
2.5 minutes.
great. Halfway through. So a part of the thing is that a lot of these disagreements between, say, ActivityPub and at Proto and Blue Sky kind of range up and down the stack and don't really have a coherent way to actually break them down into substrata that we could have conversations about. And so they tend to get really messy. And some of that messy gets in the way of being able to talk about things that these different ecosystems could learn from each other or share
Mm.
technology, right? Because there are
Hmm.
pieces of fundamental technology that are used across all, like OAuth. And Amelia Smith, who has been a spec writer in the OAuth ecosystem, wrote this really interesting letter asking people to like, hey, can we please just chill out and like actually be protocol friends? Which is what I've loosely been calling this, right? Like this is the protocol friends statement, which I am fully I endorse, and I think it's worth turning down the heat in part, but also acknowledging like where are the points of tension, and like they're not technical necessarily, right? I think that there are
Mm.
technical and adoption things. Most of the disagreement actually is at the operating level. Some of the things about the way that the model actually fundamentally works, and then the governance and funding level, I think, is where a lot of that the disagreement happens. And I think that there still can be fruitful technical discussion that we should learn to we should tolerate other people. And I think this is Christine Lemmer Weber's point, which is um, aside from like technology stack adoption, actually a lot of the goals and the values are still the same, and it is important not to tear each other down and lose sight of the larger goal.
Yeah,
So those are my feelings on the protocol wars. And how many that about right?
30 seconds.
Okay, follow up.
Not bad.
Yeah,
We'll just have 30 seconds of dead air.
sounds good.
There we go. We can all contemplate
Yeah.
what you've just said. What do
Yeah,
we?
and
Okay, right. That's like two things off our list that we covered already.
yeah. Well,
Hey, how
and
about
so
that?
so coming back to the way that this works inside of at Proto and the stake that the community has, or like independent developers as well. One of the complicated parts about this is that Blue Sky basically has staked the the network from the protocol layer in terms of having developed it and having built the largest app in it. So um, it's important to think about not just technical governance, which Blue Sky has led thus far, but also they have the majority of the market power, right?
Yeah.
The majority of the users run on their PDSs, although we can have that conversation about decentralization. And um, uh, this gets to be an interesting point about how the network and the protocols evolve over time. Who has a stake? What are the things that people are bringing to the conversation? My broad framework for this is if you want to participate in app proto development, right? What are you bringing? Are you bringing responsibility for a set of users? Are you bringing the ability to do technical work and building, or are you bringing money? Those are basically the three things that you can bring that give you a stake in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And um, the reason why this is important is that as we start to talk about protocol development and driving adoption, we should be thinking about how people are participating and what they're bringing to the table, and what also the community really is bringing to the table here too. So I want to make mention of one thing, which is that out of the App Proto New York meeting, we kind of did like a low key kickoff of the a private data working group that Boris Mann
Mm-hmm.
is pushing and running with. That is going to be hosted at discourse at protocol community, and there are this is up on the stream, isn't it? So everybody can see what's going. So we've got a working group that people can see just if they go to discourse.protocol.community.
Yep.
And there's a private data working group that's going to get started, and it's going to have its first online meeting soon. So that's all interesting stuff, and I think is an example of a thing that we want to be a community driven effort, and with the acknowledgement that like Blue Sky, if we want things like this to succeed, Blue Sky does need to eventually adopt it. But who else needs to adopt it to help show and lead the path and lead the way?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a lot of
You
stuff.
want to talk about bookmarks? That kind of
We
is a
do.
good segue into bookmarks.
What about bookmarks?
We have bookmarks now,
We do have bookmarks.
and they are implemented in a very particular way.
Yeah, let's
And
grab those.
one of the reasons why they're implemented that way is because I assume that they are, from a product point of view, they are treated as data that a user would wish to be private. Otherwise, they are favorites, which are public.
Yep. Give me 1 second.
And he's disappeared.
Am I
Mr.
back?
Rapture,
I am back. Okay, there we go. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, so they are a type of private data, right?
which you were just talking about, AT Proto doesn't support right now.
Yeah, and that's a feature of the protocol. And so, Blue Sky has some private data, right? App
Mm-hmm.
Proto does not currently.
Right.
And so the current model is if you want private data for an App Proto app, you stick it in the app view layer. And that's
Yes.
the way that DMs work, for example.
Right. Right.
So we now have Blue Sky bookmarks, and that's cool. And that's allowed people to do interesting things too, like create a little plugin
Yep.
that that allows you to sync your Blue Sky bookmarks with Obsidian. Oh, and Raindrop. Cool.
Oh,
I,
raindrop. Awesome. Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
I
Now I
get
care more.
yeah. Now you care more. Great. But one of the complicated parts about all of that is that they're not at Proto bookmarks, right? They're Blue Sky bookmarks. Um,
Yeah.
and there's like two features of that, right? Like one of the key tensions, I keep on talking about how Blue Sky is a skeuomorphism for this much weirder app proto thing. But if everybody just keeps on standing at the same angle and looking at it and just being like, yeah, it's fucking Twitter, then that's one set of incentives versus the like protocol incentives. And there's
Mm.
always going to be a tension there because there's a whole lot of people who only casually care about Blue Sky who are just going
Right.
to be like, it's a Twitter clone. Um,
Yes.
and so like this is an example of, yeah, it's probably not too hard to implement and just build into the app view, but now
Yeah.
what, right?
Just
And
as a
now
point,
we're
Ted,
along a couple dimensions. Yeah.
from a technical point of view, for right now, you've got a Hall of Mirrors effect happening with your OBS, I think. Or at least I see
Whoa!
that.
Awesome, amazing. Whoop.
Uh, so here's the thing to learn about, or which is similar to Mastodon. So the more that Blue Sky implements social networky features in the app layer, or the more that anything implements social networky features in the app layer, the more similar it is to Mastodon, the social network, versus ActivityPub, the protocol that it's built on. So I see a similarity there with people build Mastodon clients that speak the Mastodon API versus ActivityPub clients that can also access Mastodon servers. And that's kind of that. So I see an analogy there in what we're talking about with bookmarks, right? Like you are building a bookmark sync for Blue Sky, which has nothing to do with the underlying open protocol. That is a Blue Sky, the PBC API client, right?
Yeah.
And for some people, that won't like if you have a point of view on, okay, well, how much do my bookmarks belong to me? And I guess right, Blue Sky's point of view will be to say, well, look, you've got API access, so we're fulfilling our part of the philosophical bargain there, right? You can still get them out if you want. You can put them back on AT Proto in your PDS when that supports private data. Fine, go for it.
Yep.
Right.
Which is a sort of fun counterpoint to the following thing, and I'm going to make mention to something really cool that Chad T. Miller, Boris, and I have both mentioned some of the. Whoop. Are we buffering? We are buffering.
Mm.
Stream offline. Oh no. Hold on a second.
You've just made me think that for my camera not working thing, I should have a default background that looks like a real player buffering logo.
That would be good. Um,
Hey,
okay,
Dorian.
we're still streaming on YouTube. Is this
Okay, Patrick says, but the bookmarks can be used from a different PDS and app view unless Blue Sky moderates you. That's if the bookmarks were on your PDS, which they are not, because
yeah.
isn't Blue Sky storing the bookmarks off of the PDS? They must be storing them off of the PDS.
Okay, I don't know why our stream has dropped on Streamplace because the feed still seems to be going on YouTube. Fine.
Oh,
Um,
no.
it's
Oh, wait,
back.
it's a Streamplace thing. No one is streaming right now on Streamplace.
Okay. And it's dropping. Well, that's a bummer. Do we need to message Eli and be like, "Hey, Eli, what's up?"
Probably be a nice thing to do.
Yeah. Let me just shoot him a message. Oh, well, let's hit him up on Signal.
Which probably means chat has died as well.
Well, we can ask. Anybody?
Oh, it logged me out.
Me too.
Oh, wait, I'm back in.
Um,
No one's replying to me.
okay. Well, I guess we'll keep going. Okay, there we go. Um, and we'll have to just figure out what the heck is going on there. Um, yeah, this still says stream is offline, despite the fact that here, I'm going to turn it off and then turn it back on. See if it reconnects. Um, well, that's a bummer. I was going to mention this cool thing about and Anirudh's perspective on this, which is like the protocol is the API. And the thing he was talking about here was actually Chad Miller, who's built a really interesting platform called Slices, which he hasn't released yet.
Mm,
But the goal there is basically to help people do lexicon definition, experiment with lexicons, and then also be able to get a comprehensive sense of what's coming across the fire hose. So if you were to launch a little lexicon, you'd be able to see what the adoption looks like over time. And you can also listen in using his sort of fire hose tools on particular lexicons. And so one of the things he did just very quickly is, yeah, the cool thing that he did was actually just quickly build um, a Tangled search engine because Tangled actually doesn't have search at the moment.
right.
So he was able to hook up the fire hose to a search interface, basically. And and Rude's like, this is a great example of the protocol being the API, which I think is absolutely true. And so this comes back to the skeuomorphism thing, which is what are the pieces that people are using, and at what level are they integrating? Is it Blue Sky API access? Is it at the protocol level? Is it a Blue Sky client and so forth? Um,
So
yeah,
we do have Emilia in chat, and
yeah.
Bailey has come um, in on YouTube as well. So apparently we've
Not
got 8
sure
people
what's
watching here on YouTube. I'm going to tell people that we're dead on that Streamplace
yeah.
is having problems. Please find us at Dupe.
Yeah, especially since our guest is coming in a minute, and I wanted to
Yeah.
live debugging. Always a blast.
Okay, I am using the thing to um,
Okay.
tell people that we are on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, and Anuja's there. Okay, great. I see that you're there.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
we want to? Shall we put that to the side and then start our fight?
Yeah. Um, so some of this ends up being like, what level are people wanting to integrate at, and
Mm,
trying to encourage people not to just be like, I'm a Blue Sky client, but actually work on protocol. I think is really one of the key things, and part about the like credible exit to community and all of those sorts of parts. But like, coming back to the operator piece, Blue Sky is the largest operator on the network, and that
right.
implies a bunch of different things. And we've sort of seen some of that in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination. And oh, yeah, unexpected error. Okay. Um, what and how to tee this up properly? Blue Sky. Coming back to the like protocol wars a little bit, right? The
Mm,
thing that caused Jack Dorsey to eject, at least publicly, is the fact that Blue Sky decided to put in place a moderation system that is legible as a centralized moderation system, which I think
right.
is kind of critical actually for operating Blue Sky and its public perception in the public, right? Yeah.
So I think the very quick outline of the fight that we were going to have, right, is that you were going to say, well, I don't want to I don't want to praise you what you were going to say.
Okay. So, I mean, my basic thing is I think Blue Sky is doing the thing that they have to do. And uh, if you look at any trust and safety system okay, sorry, let me frame this in a different way. What's interesting about Blue Sky being the largest operator in the network is they are actually at the moment subsidizing the costs for hosting, um, running the app, and
Yep,
providing trust and safety.
yep,
And the problem is that then the PBC gets judged by a whole bunch of criteria, and the core tension that they've got is promising that this is an open space where people can do stuff, and
right.
being publicly responsible for all of the content that actually shows up on their app. And that tension, I think, is pretty gnarly. And they're doing the things that they're incentivized to do, um, as they are, mentioned in the news, as people
Mm-hmm,
criticize Blue Sky as
mm-hmm.
a containment dome for the left,
Right,
and
right,
so forth, which I think is a tough spot to be in, and this is sort of the plight of all trust and safety teams.
right. And that's part of the real politic of the thing, right? So Blue Sky also exists in a world and is subject to pressures in that world. And those pressures aren't so to be clear, we are talking about stuff like the moderation response to Charlie Kirk's murder.
Yeah,
At least in the last 48 hours. and and the tension there is between Blue Sky, saying this is or is going to be a decentralized network where everyone gets a choice in how things are moderated, and yet the practical reality that they do have to make choices. There aren't great choices for them to make, but at the same time, they have for a while been saying the equivalent of you will get to choose your own moderation service. And right now, there is no practical way of doing that. And what is Blue Sky, the PBC's responsibility to follow through on that promise? Because, arguably they can say, we've made a whole bunch of stuff open, right?
yeah.
You could, if you spent the time and you had the money, then you could totally spin up another Blue Sky compatible social network that could interoperate with Blue Sky and then worked off 80 proto, right? You can do that,
And people have, right?
right?
So, like, for example, there's Deer.social, which I'm just showing on screen now that I've been logged into, or Zeppelin
Mm-hmm.
.social, or I think that the biggest example of this has been Black Sky, right? So there are people who, and this has shown up in other places too, which is like, with the Mississippi ban or the UK's age verification
Yeah.
regulations, people have tried to direct people from Blue Sky into some of these other systems that do interoperate with AppProto and can give you views on the data in the network. Um, and is that a sufficient? I mean, like, I think that at the core of this tension is like, what does composable moderation really mean, and how much do people care? Because composable moderation, you could take it to mean, oh, it's choose your own moderation.
Right.
Or you could say composable moderation means we give you a set of fundamental
Right.
rules, and then you can stack stuff on top of that.
Yes.
And that's okay so long as
How
everybody's okay with
composable is
you
it? Right.
stacking your
Yeah.
code on, right? Um, and
But AT-Proto doesn't specify, the requirement doesn't specify like a base. Um, it's the world and the legal framework that you are operating in or residing in that requires that base level,
yeah, that's right.
right?
And there's a perception piece, right? Because who's getting judged for what? Right now, everybody just thinks of everything on Blue Sky. Right.
Right. And that's a problem that I think we've been seeing that Blue Sky is going to have to head off down the road, because I think the naive and entirely understandable view of users is right that if I want to, so Gretchen Felker-Martin got banned, okay,
Who is
and
that?
I
Tell us
am
more.
okay. So a comics writer
At
who
DC.
got dropped by DC and got banned for quite understandably not being very very sad that Charlie Kirk got murdered.
Yeah, this is a trans writer
Right.
who posted. I mean, I would say insensitive
Yes.
posts. If you're like Charlie Kirk's family, there are a lot of people who don't like Charlie Kirk,
Yeah.
and were, I think,
Quite rightly.
yeah, indifferent to the fact that he died. And again, let me back up a step and say, like, gun violence is bad. I feel really sorry for his kids. But he also was like literally, um,
Incredibly
he
toxic and abusive individual.
right,
Not great for, like not great
right,
for society. So my naive view, my idea of how a typical normie, to the extent that they exist, Blue Sky user would be thinking is, I disagree that Gretchen got banned. If this is decentralized, I still want to use Blue Sky and be able to see Gretchen's content, right? That should be
right.
my decision and not Blue Sky's decision. We even have like a really, really simple nomenclature and naming problem here, which is right now that the alternative, the way to route around that is, if assuming Blue Sky, the PBC, hadn't nuked, Gretchen's account and hadn't wiped it from a PDS or anything. So say it's still there, okay? You would have to use a different app view, which could not be called Blue Sky, right?
Yep.
From my point of view, you would have to switch to say, well, like right now we have Black Sky, right? Or we have North Sky, and those are different things. So a user would have to think, okay, right, I'm not going to use the Blue Sky app anymore. I'm going to log into Black Sky. I'm going to use North Sky. And that is the place where I can still follow everyone that I was following, and I can follow Gretchen.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and I understand why Blue Sky, the PBC, are doing it the way that they're doing it, but people are not aware that is the difference between, right, I guess I will stop using Gmail and I'll switch over to Outlook, but I can still send and receive email because there's the concept of email in the first place. And there just isn't, because all of these social networks have been branded products from the outset.
Yeah.
That's everyone's well, for normal people, that is everyone's experience of them.
Yeah.
They are brands.
Yeah. And again, I think this is one of those things that we're working out over time as we see these things, because part of it is like everybody, like the skeuomorphism inherent here is Blue Sky is a social media platform. Well,
Right.
yes, if you stand at this angle. And the part of this that gets gnarly is essentially at the URL and app level, right? That is the interface that users expect at this point to connect with.
Yep.
And being told that you need to go to another website and it's all still the same is a little weird.
Yeah.
But also practically speaking, that's also true for other distributed social media platforms too.
Right. Which is my point that nobody's used to that yet. Like
Yeah,
they want it, but the like the learning curve or the the onboarding experience is just going to be really weird. So if we had that, hey Rudy,
Hey Dan, it's Ed.
hey,
How
how's it
y'all
going?
doing? Doing all right.
We just got the boot from Streamplace, which
Oh damn.
seems to be down. So we are streaming live on YouTube at the moment, and
Okay.
having a lively argument about. Oh, Streamplace seems to be back up. Let's see. Um, the we're arguing right now about Blue Sky's responsibility to everybody for being distributed, and the sorts of things that they can impose down on their users basically at the moment. And in fact, mentioned specifically, right, like the move at the moment for people is basically to say, you don't have to use Blue Sky. You could go use Deer.social, or you could use Zeppelin, or you could use Black Sky. And is that supposed to be the way that this is supposed to work?
Yeah, I think that is and I guess I'm assuming you're talking from like a moderation perspective, right? Impose
I
rules from a mod perspective.
Yeah, I think the key thing here is like what's allowed, who decides what's allowed, and what should users expect out of being on Blue Sky, or being part of that proto.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's for me, it's like a big thing because I think when you say like what's allowed, I even think about like who introduces stuff to the protocol, who, you know what I'm
mm-hmm.
saying, like things like that. If for the play and then for the play from like a there's the how things are supposed to work and then there's the reality of how things work. Uh, I think switching a client it's tricky because so many things are dispersed. And so there's benefits to running individual parts of the stack, but then it depends on your like paranoia level or your area of concern, I would say. We're doing pretty good with Black Sky by having our own PDS and having our client that has our moderation stuff built in, but it also uses Blue Sky's moderation and it is still using like, the plan is to like use both Blue Sky's app view and Black Sky's app view. Uh, Zeppelin is more like one that has everything, but like that's cost intensive. And so we'll see how that plays out. Dear Social is just a client and I don't think it's maintained anymore. So like there's like all those things of like how much support does the tool that you're using
yeah,
have in the long term and
Right.
what risks is it willing to take and how much investment on the infrastructure side is it meant to take. I know I've now understood the Mastodon headspace a lot more, not because of this situation, but just from like clashing with them so much that like
Mm.
it's easier. What I will give them is it's easier to explain this where it's
yes,
like, oh, there's just you're basically your whole like Mastodon's just like a Twitter, like a instance of Twitter emailing other instances of Twitter. So like
Yep.
your whatever instance of Twitter you're on, app protocol is not like that. Like so
No.
um I think for the user it depends. Like is your concern getting banned? Is it your concern, avoiding like Blue Sky decided that blocks are nuclear. You can't even see the thread, you could change that on the client. Um, Blue Sky's moderation could apply a hide to something. Again, you could change that on the client. You don't have to. You can make their whatchamacallit, their moderation service optional. Uh, but then I think where a lot of people come from is like, all right, like, and I think a lot more people are moving to different PDSs because what for sure, what I will say is that like if you're on their PDS and you're on their app view and you're using their client, you're subject to their rules. Point blank period.
Yes.
It's really obvious. Once you start swapping out underlying pieces and you're using different things, the rules flex a lot more. But at the end of the day, I think a thing that is designed into the protocol that I'm thinking about more of like, was this the right way to design it into is the authoritativeness that comes from being the person who like created the app view and ran the first instance of it. Um,
Yeah.
given
Yes.
the dynamics that that would be like, you could we can let's move Blue Sky out of it because that's so charged with different ideas and stuff
Hmm.
that people have about it. But let's say Skylight, has their own app view. We'll repeat this scenario where people will have signed up for the Skylight app view, and then someone will wanna maybe will wanna they'll disagree and then they'll wanna, you know, and the real thing is that like if you get suspended from that app view, like what are the what do you do after that happens?
Right. What are the
Um,
practical things that you can do
yeah.
after that? Because
Yeah.
that's like the same problem with something like Mastodon, right? You can, all your stuff dies. You can export it and then you can host it as static content somewhere, but no one can see it again.
So
It's
so
gone.
there's
Well, this is like on the P if you're like on the Black Sky PDS and you get suspended from the Blue Sky app view, your stuff doesn't die. It dies to the
Exactly.
people
Yeah.
using the Blue Sky
yeah.
app, but like
Right.
it'll still be up on Zeppelin. We've had that happen already for somebody.
Yeah, and there's actually one key differentiator, which the PDS is really built around modeling adversarial migration as well. So if you're making backups of your PDS, you can, even if Blue Sky takes your account down, you could move all your data into another PDS, reconnect to your DID, and actually have all of your content and everything still work just fine. Most people haven't run their own backups, which is, I think, one of the major challenges, again, with everybody being used to centralized services, and don't know necessarily that you can do that, which is actually different than the Mastodon model, because if the admin decides that they want to shit can you, they kill your account and there's nothing you can do about it.
I also
So,
like yeah, so I guess there's the like you're on a third party PDS and they take you down at the app view. What do you do then? There's the
yeah.
you're on their app view and they take you down on their P and you're on their PDS and they take you down at both levels. What do you do then?
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't think you need the backups actually because your repo is always public no matter like I think even if you're in a takedown status, it's still accessible. And then, but you do need a recovery key. That's what a lot of people don't have. Even I, as a self-hosted person now, I added a recovery key as the priority order in
Yeah.
my account for did PLC. Um, so yeah, but there is that adversarial migration path as like a thing that you can do.
But I mean, I also want to kind of ladder up. And so, like, we just said, hey, Rudy. Rudy, I think everybody on the street probably knows, but we should say for posterity too, is the founder of Black Sky, and uh, has done something really remarkable in terms of incubating an entire product stack inside of Blue Sky and being able to get to significant scale, and is now looking at what does it mean to be part of this ecosystem? What does it mean to break away from it? And more than just being a separate app and technical stack, has actually done implementation for PDSs, uh, relays, and the app view stack, which is like when we talk about what are you bringing to the table, is it users? Is it engineering? Is it money? Rudy has really walked the walk with the community here on bringing two of those to the table, which I think is important to think about as we're talking about how the app proto ecosystem goes. The thing I wanted to ask you, Rudy, also here is like, what's the dream, right? Like, why did you decide that this was a path to go down in terms of building? What do you want for for this community that you're building with? And like, why go to all the effort in terms of all the technical work?
Yeah, I because I have a deep sense of I think I understand the concept of community better than a lot of folks. I think a lot of people have an understanding of community as like a demographic, and I think of communities in a much more deeper connected way from like a collectivist kind of perspective. And so community kind of work speaks to me. I'm the chair on the board of directors of a nonprofit that fiscally hosts 15 mutual aid groups doing community organizing in New York City. Before Black Sky, I had founded a project called Paper Tree that is now included in Paper Tree. That is a it was really finance, like collaborative finance. Like if you could share a bank account with uh not just the person you're married to, but like a group of friends, or
Right.
particularly like for a mutual aid organizing use case. We're excited about bringing that into the Black Sky experience soon. And and yeah, and so for me, like community in very real practical ways helped me survive, grow up, know who I was in relation to other people. And so I'm deeply connected to that kind of experience, and I don't see it on the internet. I think there's glimpses of it in earlier examples of the internet, but it is, and the closest thing, so the closest thing to it now, I think, is Reddit. And
Yeah,
so Reddit is a very interesting model to me. And so I think Black Sky grows into becoming the Reddit of that protocol. And I think Black Sky as Black Sky algorithms grows into being the Reddit, and then Black Sky the community is like r/Black Sky as like a subreddit within that. But it is the pro it to me, like Black Sky the community is like how Blue Sky the app was supposed to be for app protocol, which was supposed to be like this example of what you can do with everything, and being kind of the like the priority. Like I like the idea that a Black community is like the vanguard of this protocol. And yeah, and so and in doing it that way, we're able to like demonstrate really cool things. We could demonstrate you can incubate, you can start. We started as just a custom feed and then grew into
hmm
a relay, a PDS, a moderation service, an app view, a front end client, multiple dev tools, like uh and grew the user base particularly from the Blue Sky user base. And without, I think now folks are like building stuff and relying on the existing Blue Sky user base, but we like really cultivated a group and kind of did the inverse. And so that's one. The other is like these kinds of like I view there being as like these three pillars to the experience that we're trying to provide in this kind of like Reddit for app proto experience, which is like owning the algorithm, like you can control the ordering and sorting of
Mhm.
records, like having tools for that, controlling the moderation, allowing your like to the point where you're moderate, you can recruit moderators from your community, the moderators can get paid. And the sovereignty that comes with that, like, Reddit was able to shut down subreddits, take subreddits
yeah,
away from the moderators.
Mhm.
The idea that we want to make it so that we have an experience over here where that cannot happen. Um, and and unlike the like Lemmys of the world or something, like it's not going to be like an instance based. Like you can, the app proto identity is your universal identity, right?
yeah,
So you could jump around, and the community you're part of does not, like, you get to still be the individual with your identity and be a part of the community, and those two things are not like like hard connected. uh I think that's a good positive thing, because you could also be a part of multiple communities without multiple passwords, right?
Yeah.
um so that piece, governance, so we're experimenting with like a tool set of, we're starting with like a fork of Polis, where called Black Sky People's Assembly, and we're using that to have folks decide the community guidelines for the Black Sky community. Over 400 people have participated in that so far. In the last, we launched it a week ago. 400 people have voted, 20,000 votes on things ranging from privacy policies, who, like, what other communities can use, the kind of like trademarking a little bit. They're like,
mm.
Black Sky is very protective over the Black Sky brand. I didn't expect folks to
Good.
be so. I'm like, this is just like a
It's important.
company,
It's
and like, yeah,
identity, right? It's the
yeah,
community's identity.
yeah, yeah. Um, And so yeah, so like things like that, uh, you know, Black Sky as a community's relation to the other communities that are hosted on Black Sky algorithms infrastructure. Uh, People are like, some people are like, we should do assemblies by, like every month or something. And someone's like, people have jobs. We should do assemblies like once a year. And like being able to like see the data on that. And it's been really interesting seeing like all the things people agree with, and like
Mm.
and yeah, and the stuff that's like a bit more controversial, or like, I made the joke, like, I think some folks are like, like they're like, some people have an assumption about me, for example, that like I was, I was like deep into this like social media space, before this. I was not. I didn't even really use social media personally. Like Black Sky, I know Black Sky is working well because it also makes me want to use it more. And I am
Mm.
not a social media
Right.
person, like I've always said in the early days, like I was building for me, and then other people just kind of happened to like it and then formed an identity around it. But yeah, and so what was I saying?
You were talking
Uh
about governance and
Yeah,
policy, and,
Paulus.
and
Yeah.
how people had surprised you, and there were some controversial
oh yeah.
things.
Oh, stuff. So stuff people. the stuff people agree on,
Mm,
we all agree on. There's some stuff that's more divisive. And I was saying that like, people kind of assume that I have this like deep background in social media projects, or like that I looked at all these different protocols before I launched Black Sky. I did not. I just was like, I was in the Web3 world. Then I heard
hmm
about Blue Sky. I was like, this seems cool. I kind of hack algorithmic choice by having multiple Google accounts when I search YouTube.
mm.
So I'm like, this seemed cool to me. I understood protocols, but I didn't like, and so like someone put in a question, don't know who did it. I have my suspicions, but someone had put in a question about like or a statement that we should kind of like force Bridgie Fed on the Black Sky PBS users, and
Woof.
it was like a resounding kind of it was a resounding pass, like unsure, like people are just. I'm like, well, like that's it's but things like that, it's like very illuminating because I'm like, I think I know the Black Sky community
Mm,
like very deeply,
hmm
and then the data then confirms the things that I know. The things that surprised me were like I didn't know, like the things that I guess I'm kind of like I think there was a thing about that I'm just it's very I don't know, humbling, and it's a good feeling to like build something that so many people feel connected to. Stuff like that surprises me. But other things that are like very practical, like why would we bridge into a protocol with people that we don't know, who there's not like there's another Black Sky over there. So like why would
Right.
we things like that are like unsurprising. And then the third piece is like the financial rails. So that's something that like, we've used Open Collective from the beginning, pretty much to have transparent budgeting. Now we're getting like $3,800 in contributions for people. That is our business model. Like we don't run ads. We just get, voluntary subscriptions, not donations, because we're a for-profit company and we can't accept donations legally, but voluntary subscriptions will have more options in the future for like, do things where someone can like, we want to show badges in the Black Sky client. We want to show that like these
Yeah.
people are supporters, active supporters, have a way to do like one-off contributions and payments for things. And then we really, my mission in life in general is that I want to like normalize I want to make it an everyday practice, the kind of community that
Uh-huh.
you know, my definition of community. I want my definition of community to become the definition of community, and then I want to normalize the practice of mutual aid, so it's not seen as um, like charity or something that is like these like solidarity bonds. I want to make very normal. So I think the having ways to do like cool things of like what we were trying to do with paper tree, I think are very realistic now. When we were doing paper tree, we were having problems finding the kinds of groups that work like Black Sky, know how like native to the internet, know how to like use like are comfortable being on their phones, um, have formed connections with each other,
hmm
are comfortable trusting of people enough to like, and it's not based and the relationships are not based on some external thing. The relationship is just based on like people forming real relationships to each other. That's the thing that I always find that's been super surprising. I'm like, I always say that like, I owe everything to the internet. I met my wife on the internet, Bumble, the dating apps. People, a lot of my friends I meet from the internet nowadays. And then you meet people on the internet, like there's a weird, I think, I guess there's people who are like down about the internet, but I think they're down about like big social media because even in the
Yeah.
songs I listen to, like the internet is a topic. Like, you know what I mean? Like the things you say on the internet have it's there's no disconnection. There's at least and especially with the younger generation, I guess too, maybe there's like a generational thing, but like there's not too much of a separation from the internet. Like the internet is
Yeah.
real life for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, and for me, like the connections I made, like I meet people from Blue Sky, from Black Sky, and I meet them in person. It's like it's no awkward phase. There's no like it's not like showing up to a party and you
Right.
don't know anyone. It's like, hey, you know what I'm saying? It's just we just jump into
Sure.
conversations and I already know their sense of humor and stuff like that. So that more of that is what I want to foster. I really like that.
Yeah, that's I mean actually surprisingly analogous to surprising, I'm not sure that's surprising. That's been my experience on the internet. Even though I know that like our ages are somewhat different. And like I met my wife on the internet too, but I always say like I met my wife on the internet back when that was creepy. And like we met on a science fiction author's message board, and I think the piece about community there is really key because even without all of the infrastructure that we're talking about, and this is in an era prior to centralized social media really being as much of a thing, like there were schisms within that community, right? So this message board, the dude who ran it, Orson Scott Card, came back. Turned out people did not like his politics,
Uh-huh.
and what one of the things that happened was you ended up with splinters or diaspora message boards that broke off of that, right? And so I was in a particular group, and what's interesting about that is there were multiple different communities within that larger community that broke out into their own places, but you basically just left behind all of your history and your identity. It was us renegotiating that through instant messengers or other sorts of things. And to be clear, this was really important, including for science fiction, because this message board that broke off is the place that The Expanse came from. The Expanse originally started as a role playing game on this message board that then Ty Frank, who was half of the author duo, said, "Hey, can I use this actually as the basis for writing this book series?" And it's like hugely successful, right? So I mean, like
Hmm.
we've seen some of these patterns, and the question is like, and I still talk to some of these people. There are also people who I've met on the internet who I've never met in real life, right? Who I've had like really strong relationships, including working with.
Mhm.
But like, how do you foster these relationships, and what's better infrastructure for doing that? I think is really interesting and important, and like not the experience that other people have had with social media, particularly if you think like Facebook, where people's accounts get hacked and then they're just like boned, right? And they lose all of that history, and they've got to figure out other ways to reconnect and stuff like that. So I'm curious where, like, does this feel like the right set of technologies to build on for you, Rudy? And like, are
Mhm.
there things that like the what I'm interested in, I think broadly speaking, is like, do you how far do you think that we've come with that proto in trying to get to those things, those values that you want, and how much further do we have to go? Like, are things that are missing that you're like, oh, we got to do this before we can get there, or like you're like,
What do you
is it
mean?
just engineering work between us and the communities, the tools that you think the community needs?
Hmm. A lot in there. I think like I guess the thing that comes up for me is I think Blue Sky needs to like get out of its own way in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with like some of the devs even saying like you're carpet bombing, suspending people like that. Just like that's a bad look. Especially there's been so many Blue Sky's been in so many press cycles. You Google Blue Sky, there's a new news article every day. You Google app protocol, nothing. That's that is a problem. You know what I mean? Like that is the root of like they have so many opportunities to talk about more about the protocol than about Blue Sky, and they haven't. And so
They
like
are running
of
out of
course people
time.
yeah, they're running out of time. And of course people don't know. Like I'm educating users on the fact that there are different servers.
Hmm.
I should not have to do that. As a dev in
No.
the ecosystem, I should not have to be the one that explains your protocol that you designed to your user base. Um, and like that, so I think there's way more stuff they could, and like the money that they're like, I see they're hiring folks for like machine learning engineers and stuff. They're operating like just a singular company. You know what I mean? And so like the I think that there's more that should be done there. There's obviously stuff we could do on the community side, but if it's as if like Threads is like the elephant in the room on the Activity Pub side now. It's
Yeah.
like if Threads, if when Activity Pub started, it started with Threads, and
Right.
then other people tried to build stuff around it. The dynamics there, and then if like Threads never really did enough investment in the rest of the community to like put projects on the map for people, like make it really like there's just so much. I've always been on like the build like Blue Sky should be the app protocol browser. That should be a thing that they build. Like, like vote, like do like show that you want show with the code that you ship that you want other projects to thrive in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I think I've had to work extremely hard with unclear incentives for like a long-term thing, and that's fine with me because I'm fine with dealing with uncertainty and I can like coach my team through uncertainty. Um, but a lot of other people, I don't think they know how they're gonna, I always bring up the moderation problem. Other people aren't sure how they're gonna handle moderation. I'm like, okay, the moderation stuff is gonna cost a bunch of bread. All right, we can't do this for free. know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So and like so how do you like and it's like so my way of doing that is like the way I know how to do it and feel comfortable doing it is through community building, like
Right.
and so now we do have the money and resources to be able to like ship some of those things. Someone else starting out, I'm like, I bring up how like I think that's like another place of like you don't have the cold start problem, but you
Yeah.
do have you're gonna have all the costs of
Yep.
like of if you succeed. And so like and if you don't have a business model or something baked in or you don't have funding, I just don't know how you do that. So
Yeah,
it's
You
hard
burn
for most
out.
folks to get
You
that. Yeah.
you you burn out
Yeah.
like we've seen in the Fediverse or on Mastodon servers where
Hmm.
you have a single admin. They thought it was a great idea, and then they have to handle all the moderation stuff. And then one day, and I don't blame them at all. They're like, "Fuck it, I
Yeah.
can't do this. I don't want to do this."
Yeah, and that's like a research problem. Like I think Aaron Kassan and Darius
Yeah,
Kazemi
exactly.
have
Yeah,
like put out like that governance paper that like the problem on the activity pub side is burnout. The problem on the app protocol side is gonna be burnout too. That's why like we're the only server that like has like all these people. You know what I mean? Like it's easy. It's something we want to do that we want to help with. It's like almost like sometimes folks like I say from the product perspective we're like the Reddit of app protocol, but oftentimes I really do think we're like the app protocol R&D team for folks because like
yeah,
what I'm saying? So like
yeah,
something that like we have in the works. I think there's people who are like trying to like offer services for PDS hosting right now, for
yep,
example. And but I don't know. I think there's someone else who will become like a player in that realm that does it in a protocol friendly way. uh I do think that like some folks are just trying to be like, here's a form, you sign up and then we'll go spin up a server for you. I think something we'd like to do is like and that we're hoping to, I think it's going to be open source, but the team's basically our team is also working on like a PDS hosting kind
yeah,
of solution because like we think that like and built for the the same this similar, so I'll phrase it like this too, like when I wanted to allow folks to migrate to Black Sky, there was there were two tools that folks said could let you migrate.
yep.
And I was like, these tools don't work. I'm like, so people aren't going to migrate. You know
hmm
what I mean? And
Well,
so
I
what?
think I think there's a difference between, and this is really about the maturity of the app proto ecosystem in general. And I keep on reminding people, we've really only been doing this for like 2 years, right, in the open.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing a lot of is people building things for the first time and throwing it out there to see whether whether it can be used or not. And so these are prototypes or hobby projects often. And so I think you as the R&D team is like legit, and like shout out to you and to Bailey around the tools and actually trying to battle test them, because y'all at this point have the largest PDS move
Mhm.
so far in App Proto's history, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I'm like, I guess my thing is that like, and I don't, maybe this is like, but you're asking like where we need help. Like we need help. We need production ready things because like we will have people use it and we will look bad if it does not work. And so
yeah,
like that is a real thing. And so like we get blamed for things that aren't even our fault. And that's fine. I'll speak to folks, I'll explain things to people. But like because no one's ever did this many migrations, first of all, Blue Sky doesn't have the reason you can't migrate back to Blue Sky is because the implementation is broken. It hangs if too many people are migrating at one time.
Yeah.
hmm
Then the rate limits are hard coded.
Yep.
The rate limits are the upload block. So if you have people migrating, if you have hundreds of people migrating gigabytes of data of images and videos, it's not literally no one's done that. So it's like, and the code has the button. So like maybe this is where like maybe we should contribute back to the code and try to like have the PDS stuff changed. But like, stuff like that is hard because now I'm juggling DevOps, I'm rebooting the server,
yeah,
I'm helping people, I'm troubleshooting, helping people to migrate using these different migration tools. Um, we are still moderating. We still have all this. We still have these future projects. I'm still fundraising. It's hard to juggle it all. So I don't need a new tool that I introduce to introduce new problems to me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I'm the think of me as the customer and the user, and you need to help me be great when you like bring some
So
of that stuff
so
up.
let's break that down in a couple of different ways, right? Because what's interesting about this, and my thesis with the community fund and trying to help support people building PDS tools is we've never seen anything like this before, right? Like there is no analog for people being able to move their entire account to a new hosting provider in a social context, right? So like y'all are literally doing this for the first time, basically. And I don't expect those to work necessarily. And so I think that we're going to hammer some of that stuff out. But the other part about this is we've never seen these dynamics. And so there are things like, what are the economics of people moving their data en masse? Should people be able to migrate freely, or should they like be able to migrate once a month? You don't want people like jumping back and forth between PDS hosts, just wasting a whole bunch of bandwidth in an adversarial manner. We've just like never seen this before, right? And it's kind of interesting to think about some of these pieces and what we're going to get to. I think that there are other parts of this of like you are proving out. It's like more than R&D, right? You're fulfilling the dream and the goals that Blue Sky say that they want to see. And in order to make that happen, like y'all are first. I also want to see more of these things, but like with what resources is one question, and also like who is this incumbent on? Is it incumbent on the community? Is it incumbent on Blue Sky? Some of that's also like who's doing fundraising where, because like we're just basically doing this like as hobbyists or as like low dollar value investment in the space thus far. And so to me, some of this and this conversation has made me think like, I've always talked about Blue Sky as being two companies, a protocol company and a social media company. And like, there's a continuum between Blue Sky being a product company that's mostly focused on social media and treating @Proto as like an externality that other people should deal with.
They have a protocol department.
Sure.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying like it's not even two, it's like one company with a protocol department that they sometimes consult. I hit up the protocol guy whenever I have questions because I know who that person is.
So this feels like a, this is you already said this, Rudy, and I think this is the really important thing right now where they're running out of time. They can't keep relying on saying, oh, look, it's great that we're built on this @Proto thing, when practically speaking, they haven't shown that it's important to them. I totally understand the pressures of prioritization. They went and shipped bookmarks, right, before making sure that they've got robust import or migration back to a Blue Sky PDS. Like, so I understand that they've got to make that you just have to decide what's higher up in your implementation roadmap, but that reflects what's important to them.
Right? Yeah, you can also see like, look at the app.bski.unspec lexicon. That's like, all that stuff is app view specific APIs. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, yeah, it's tough. So like more of that, more transparency. The like the entryway PDS, we tried to introduce captchas on the PDS. That code's not public. I can do that. I can be like, yo, Paul, Brian, Devin, like, what's good? Can we get some of that? You know what I'm saying? But everybody's like, we're in a privileged position. And I know I'm in a privileged position. You know what I mean? And that's good. We have a good Black Sky and Blue Sky have a good working relationship, and I leverage that. But like, yeah, I'd imagine, the random person that just wants to like indie hack on something, I think they're in trickier straits. But then maybe if that person had a bunch of users, like maybe it would be different. I assume that it's like it's not just because Blue Sky likes me. It's because like they know that like
you have the users.
It will affect people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But this comes back to like, what do people bring to the table? Is it users? Is it engineering? Is it money? And this is the other part that I think about. Like, if we zoom back and think about Blue Sky in some kind of weird way is a vehicle for turning VC money into this @Proto network, and they've produced the code to do quite a lot of stuff and enable these pieces, done the research. Is that good enough? What are the other things that we want out of them? What's their runway look like? Are they going to continue fundraising, right? Like, it's weird to be in this place of both recognizing that some of these things probably couldn't have happened incrementally, or would have looked very different if they'd been done incrementally. And what's the future look like? Because I think that my contention is that the way that @Proto and Blue Sky has been built to this point can't be the way that it's built in the future. And we don't know what it's going to look like building into the future. And some of this is going to be around the way that we coordinate. And like, it's amazing that at Proto has been this permissionless up to this point. But now, actually, we need to coordinate in this permissionless ecosystem to do things together. And how are we going to do that?
And when you say permissionless in that sense,
I mean,
so
to
I
your
see
point,
permissions.
in indie devs, anybody can just get started, launch something into the network,
Mm.
see how it works, build in these spaces, right? But extending the protocol requires coordination with
Yeah.
other people, and battle testing some of this stuff requires users to actually use it and somebody's credibility to be on the line for whether that thing works or not.
Well, I would say that like extending the protocol, they've been very clear that like they're the ones who get to choose where it gets extended or not. They've explicitly said I've asked them multiple times. I asked Jay, I'm like this, like they're like this is our like we get to say, and it's gonna be very interesting because we're Black Sky is actually in the process of like doing something where like it would be a major extension to the protocol, and we also have the users, so it will theoretically get adopted by you know a chunk of some portion of the user base. Maybe it's 0.01% or whatever. But like, you know, what happens then? Is it, and it's going to be and the thing that Blue Sky said they wanted to do. And, the way we hope it plays out is that Blue Sky adopts our proposal to extend the protocol in
I
that
think
way.
that's the best case, right? It's that you demonstrate through usage that they're like, we're too busy to be on like
Hmm.
working groups or anything, or to validate whether there's something someone else needs that we
They do
don't need right
participate in
now
some
that
working
isn't.
groups.
Okay, but that like isn't in their own internal roadmap, right? It's like, why spend time on stuff that they don't need right now? You're going to spend stuff on time on what you need right now, but we don't have a clear commitment that stuff is going to be merged back in,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Like the assumption
exactly.
is the good thing to do would be that they would adopt what has been demonstrated elsewhere and that we wouldn't have any not invented here, right?
Hmm.
But we don't
Yeah.
have any sign of that yet. And that's where we're starting to get increasingly worried.
And we don't know a process. Yeah, I mean, like
Right.
this is a
Yeah.
guess of a way to do it. It's like
Yeah.
ship something, get lots of people to like it, and like maybe that becomes the way, but who knows?
Yeah.
But that's also that's what I really, really like about the way that you've been not just talking about, but like the entire evolution and development of Black Sky, which, if I'm going to use a really shitty, like, West Coast VC way of putting it, it's like this is community first software. It's community centered. It's not user centered. It doesn't come from like a West Coast, libertarian point of view of like, this is for me. And I found that really
Mhm.
interesting because you did say that you built this for you first, but your anchoring is in your community. Like what you
Yeah,
needed is those connections and those relationships, and that it's designed to nurture and enrich those and find new ways to make those stronger, right?
yeah. I did a blog post recently for a publication, and I didn't use I a single time. I used
Right.
we like 15 times. And then the
Yeah.
person literally tried to change my words and was like, tried to like make me say I. And I was like, I speak from when I'm saying something that feels like my opinion,
Right.
I use I. When
Yeah.
I'm speaking about like things that we are working on. I think of it as
Right.
even when it was just me writing the code, I thought of it as we are working on it. Because for me, and that's just like I don't know, it's just like a thing with the English language. For me, it's like I was speaking with a Black Sky community member, and they brought up the like term Ubuntu, which like it's like a understanding of like I am because you are like
Right.
that is my definition of community that like it's a we subjectivity.
Yeah.
So even when it was something I wanted, I knew other people wanted it because I know that I'm not some outlier individual. Like I'm a part of a whole that I feel very connected to. And
Mhm.
so I was all even when that's what helped me. There was people who are like, you know, black folks are never going to come to Blue Sky. Um, they're gonna go to Spill, and if they don't go to Spill, they'll go to Threads, and if they don't go to Threads, they'll go back to Twitter, and if they don't want to go back to Twitter, they'll literally get off the internet. Um, and I was like, I don't think that's true. I think the way that I think if that were true, then I have something wrong. Like there's something broken with me that I have like
Uh-huh.
misunderstood a whole concept of blackness that like this I felt like I was very confident that this would work out the way that worked out. Um and again, and like Blue Sky has like played well with us. Uh I do think that there's like I would like to see, and I think we're coming up with like a need for the like Retroid is the one who did the adversarial migration stuff, right? I think
Yeah,
there's
that's
like
right.
there's probably some bottoms up stuff that needs there's a lot of probably a lot of bottoms up stuff that needs to happen. There's gonna need to be buy-in from Blue Sky to get behind certain things. And I think there's certainly lots of stuff they could do to help.
Yeah,
And then from the funding, I think that there's a third piece that you keep mentioning, Ted. I don't know where that external funding comes from, besides for me, it's just like I'm like, I tell the team, we have the team, and the team has such different backgrounds. I'm like explaining to them like this is what VC money like comes with. This is what grant money comes with and what it looks like. This is
yep,
what angel money comes with. This is what, I'm like, but what's better than all those is revenue.
yes,
And so like, lets you control your destiny a lot more. Um, so that's been the thing that I've been focusing mainly on because, that's also the thing that's like feels more in our control because funders have their view of the world. That's actually the only reason I even speak up about like different protocol conversations is because funders are, what'd you call that? Like disproportionately influenced by things they read on the internet.
Mhm.
And so if someone just says, I've had like some of my funders repeat things back to me. I was like, I know the post you saw, and I can tell
Right.
you it's not true.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yep.
Like literally,
yeah, yeah.
And then I'm
It's
like, and watch, I'm gonna prove it to you that it's not true. Uh, yeah,
yeah, it's
and that's how
discourse
the relay
management.
came about.
Yeah. So I mean, like, two questions. One, what pieces of infrastructure is Black Sky running at this point? How independent do you feel like the community is now from Blue Sky's decisions? Um, and then keep in the back of your mind also what does Black Sky need next, and what do you need next to get to the places that you want?
Okay, so first part, how affected are we by Blue Sky's decisions? And second part, what do we need?
Yeah.
Uh, we're still affected, and I don't think we should be disaffected.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of like the way it's supposed to be a global space. If App Protocol is a global shared space, and it's not like Ac- Activity Pub works like fiefdoms. And
Yep.
so if App Protocol is more like a shared global space, we kind of like it's like for me I use some people get thrown off by this because I use like geopolitics as an analogy. I think of it more like that. Like, like uh it's less fiefdoms. You could have like, trade partnerships. You could have
Mhm.
like and like things. So I don't want us to go to war with Blue Sky because that would mean that we have a fractured, that would mean we fork the protocol in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's different relays that don't talk to each other, different PDSs that don't talk to each other, different app users that don't talk to each other. Then I feel like we've recreated Mastodon, and
Right.
I wouldn't want that. Um, I so there's some degree will be affected. I think it's like, are they playing fair? As of right now, we don't feel like there's some big issue. Um, so as of right now, I think we feel pretty good. Uh, once we have and then we'll have like, with a Black Sky client, we'll pull in like my goal to at least something that we're and some this is I don't know if it plays out this way in the future, but like something that I'm thinking about with this kind of like subreddit experience is like communities have different needs for different
Hmm.
kinds of content.
Yes.
People are creating lexicons. There's already a conversation about people recreating lexicons, like
Yeah.
multiple long form content.
Hmm.
Yep.
Me, I think a cool thing with that protocol, and this is why I say like I view it if like it's not silos. It's like what if you blend the experiences together? So what if you have like you could do view Blue Sky feeds, Blue Sky posts, make Black Sky like community only posts,
Yep.
and then you could see smoke signal events for your community. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
uh and then maybe you have a long form section somewhere. Like that is, and all that within one client. That's what I think would be really interesting. And then that maybe puts you on at the whim of like multiple app views, you know? Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I think long story short, I think Blue Sky always plays a part, regardless of their size. Even if Black Sky became of equal size, whenever like war gets bigger, like Blue Sky's already big. So like unless Blue Sky gets minimized, I don't see that that makes sense. And I wouldn't want that to happen. I wouldn't want to see them, I don't want to see them lose users. I just want us all to grow. I
Right.
want the promise of the pie growing and
Yeah.
we all have a bigger slice. That's an ideal scenario for me. What Black Sky needs, a little bit of patience from everybody. Um, and you know, uh, I think people should participate. You know, we have our assembly feature. So if you're a part of, again, if you're on the PDS, you're on the relay, you like consume any of that stuff, you feel a part of the extended community. You know what I'm saying? You feel like you want your community to be on our infrastructure. Please like reach out and like sound off. Like that kind of growth, that demonstration, like I want us to help prove to people that this is the way forward. This is a way forward. You know what I'm saying? Like I mentioned
Yeah.
to Lawrence at some point that like, you know, getting $1 million grant, maybe that's the way forward for some people. Maybe getting $40 million in VCs, that's the way forward for people. But for me, it's like, what if one community at a time we build and grow? For me, within those communities, I'm happy to have one conversation at a time. If people like encounter problems, something I've been trying to explain to folks is that like I don't want us to be like Blue Sky, where we're the company you yell at to make something happen. Like I want everyone to kind of just feel like they have enough stake in it that and that the governance is shared, that we have a conversation in terms of like having things be built. Um, and then I do like we want funders, but I'm very specific about like funders to be like aligned with us because I've been introduced to different people now, and like fun a lot of funders don't want what we want as a team and as a community. And so like if folks are aligned with that vision, then I'd love to speak with them. But I am I'll die on the hill that like I don't want to change. I don't want to be extractive. I don't want to do ads as a business model. You know, I want things that like a lot that like the business model and growth for Black Sky aligns with the vision that I want to see. I want the money that we make, like the mission requires money, so we'll make money, but that money that's made should just help us keep doing the great things that we're already doing.
Yep. Are there ways that people should get involved? You said participate in governance as needed. Are there technical ways that people get? Again, the ways that I've been framing things are you bringing users? Are you bringing engineering? Are you bringing funding and resources? Are there other things that you want people to bring? Are there ways that people can contribute on any of those?
Uh, so funding I view as either revenue or like some
Yep.
kind of like, you know, gift or thing. So like if you're a community that like you think that we can work together and you can use our tools, let's chat. Uh if you're a
Cool.
funder who's like interested in funding this kind of projects and you're like we have like a whole like vision statement of what we're working on. Uh if that jives with you, let's chat. Engineering stuff, there's been folks opening issues on the on risky repo already. So like yeah, you can just go to the GitHub. All the stuff is open source. PRs are also welcome. You know what I'm saying? Not just the issues, but the pull requests too. Where, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we'd love support. We love support on all that stuff. Anything you see too, like don't like just, you know, I know people love engineers like to be critical, but like you think that the readmes and the documentation should be better? Help us out with that. You think you know what I mean, the code should be organized some way? Help us out with that. You think these dependencies should be removed? Help us out with that. There's no thing too small that like, you know, we wouldn't accept. On the contrary, like if you want to refactor a whole, like you want to rip out, you want to rip out, you know, the server for like use a different web server framework, that would be a different conversation.
Right.
Um, so that's on the build, and so yeah, everything is like the client, like Bailey has shipped. You know, he's done PRs for Black Sky, but we have those cute, you know, the repo like lecture repost icons. We have some
Uh huh.
that's specific to It's from the settings, but he pulled it into the notification settings. Stuff like that is really cool. So if you have ideas on that and you want to ship, because now there's actually front end code and React code, not just Rust code that people can participate in. Um, that's all welcome. Also, you can build the tools like I was mentioning. So, like, like Bailey, I recorded a 45-minute. I was trying to talk people out of using, like, I've made a post. I said I was giving out, my mods were asking me for invite codes. I gave them some invite codes. I was because the PDFs needed invite codes back then. I gave them the invite codes. I made a little inside joke post of like, I feel like Oprah giving out invite codes.
Yep.
And then that people were like, what invite codes? 300 replies asking for invite codes. And so then I was like, all right, I'm gonna record. Like, I want people to understand that, like, you don't, the way these apps work, it was the very early, so I was like, you could use the Black Sky Community web app, and you don't have to be on our PDFs to use it. You can still be on a Blue Sky hosted PDF. So I was trying to talk people out of wanting the invite code. So I recorded this 45-minute video explain like you got to install Goat, you got to install Homebrew, you got to install Golang. Like
Yeah.
if you're on a Windows computer, don't know what you do with that situation.
Right.
Um, and then that's when I made the post like, oh, I don't think these like existing migration tools work. There needs to be one that just works on web. And then Bailey made PDS Mover, and then Clinton from the Black Sky team made TechTight. So if there's stuff like that, that's why I was saying like production ready things that like will solve problems for us and not give additional headaches. Would love to see some of those. I would love to see a tool that like, and maybe it ends up being in. I think PDS Mover is also open source too. I'm pretty sure. Like,
Yep.
Bailey's been a super help, but like Bailey's been the prime example of all this stuff, and I think Bailey has a bunch of ideas. So PDS Gatekeeper, another one, rate limiting. He helped us introduce the rate because the entryway PDS is not open source code. So that's the stuff where the capture comes from. That was the only reason I didn't turn on the invite codes is because I was worried about bots and stuff like that. So we have PDS Gatekeeper to help with that. Being able to brand our emails, that's like brand, like going back to like people being protective over the Black Sky name. Like I'm very much like I want to put the name in the branding, like that's why even though it's a little controversial, the Black Sky Comrade handle is because I don't like the word ally, but then also when people are screenshotting posts, I want you to see Black Sky.
Mm.
Um, and but yeah, being able to like swap out because the email templates for the PDS is like, that's hard coded as well. So like he found a hack where now I can brand the emails with Black Sky. That's fire. Um, and link back to the Black Sky client because you know what I'm saying, like, so that's another thing. But tools like that, though, all those things are like super helpful, especially when you're think about not just the technical things, but think about a person like help trying to build a social media company.
Yep.
Like, what are the things that they need? Um, all those things those are the tools that I could use. Right now, we're talking about moderation. We're having, and I voice a lot. When I encounter a problem, the thing I do is I make a post too. So like when I need help, I post. And then I'm hoping someone is looking at these posts and being like, all right, boom. If I ship, at least Rudy will use it and Black Sky will use it. That's what I'm
Mm.
hoping for. Um, and so like moderation, I think Verbderm, I don't know how to say his handle, but
Yeah.
like
Tony. Yeah.
we've been talking about like, okay, we need automated like the complaint my number one complaint that I get, and I know I'm doing a good, I've done that's what my thing that I used to say, like we did a great job with Black Sky because like we don't get complaints of racist trolls or anything. We do get complaints about too much sexual content
Mm.
because the Hive AI moderation does not do a great job with the images and videos in the Black Sky feed. So talking with Verbderm, we're trying to like improve automated moderation on that. And that's like a thing that we need before we can ship community only posts. Because if it's not going to be seen by the Blue Sky Hive moderation, we need something else to replace that. So that's something that we're working on. And I think we're talking about these kinds of like things that will be big and expensive, like if we're going to do like a video transcoding service
Mm.
or moderation, like shared infrastructure for that, so that like maybe we all split. Maybe there's a community of people that split the bill. Phil, Phil, bad example. Shout out to them. They are working on a PLC. They're working on some stuff around forking PLC and doing like a PLC mirror. And
Mm.
maybe there's shared infrastructure and governance over that. Stuff like that is great. That's the stuff that like you know what I'm saying? Like I think there's so many different layers that someone could like plug into in the ecosystem, but you have to, you know what I mean, like Find the folks that have the problems. I have a lot of problems. Always happy to share the problems, and
Yeah,
if you are able to help with the problem, yeah, I mean, and we'll kick bread to you too. Like, like we get our subscribers, and like, daily we like kick Tim bread on his GitHub sponsor. So like happy to do stuff like that as long as we can all keep growing and
yeah.
building an ecosystem.
The broad thing that I keep on telling people is like, how do we find new problems, right? And some of that is you got to run this shit in order to be able to bump into those problems.
Mhm,
And that
mhm.
was the thing with Fig, aka Phil. Microcosm is an amazing set of services, and like I've relied on it for a bunch of stuff, including just like trying to find other apps. And like it's through talking with them that I was like, oh, you've got a really interesting take on ways in which we could make the PLC more resilient, and I'm looking forward to. I think they're writing some of that stuff up. But like, run more code. I think is
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the things that like stand up services, see what it's like.
Ship.
And yeah. Yeah, so like I probably should actually give some of the risky code base a whirl at some point, and um, I think I really enjoy seeing you talk about the experience that your community has in trying to use some of these tools, because it's been amazing to see people. I mean, like the invite codes is a really good example. Like people being like, "Yes, I am going to sit through this YouTube tutorial and use Goat." I'm like,
We got
"Really?
so many views.
Holy
We got
shit!
so many
What?"
views and comments and like, just like I haven't looked at the
Yeah.
video in a little bit. People started subscribing. I was like, this is not. I'm not gonna be a YouTube. We're not gonna put out a bunch of stuff on YouTube. But
Right.
like, yeah, that was funny. I think it got like 1,000, almost 1,000 views last time I checked.
Yeah. 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 So, I mean, any other shout outs you want to do? I know that we've been talking for like an hour, so I want to be respectful of your time
Yeah.
too. This has been amazing.
Yeah. No, just shout out the team. Shout out the Black Sky team. Everybody you see with the Black Sky that team handle. Give them some love. Uh, and shout out to the folks who are really like, what I mean, shipping things that help people in the ecosystem and like doing more shipping than arguing or posting. I respect those folks a lot, a lot, a lot, and they deserve your support. They deserve your dollars. Because the other thing too is like, yeah, like if I tell the team like no one's gonna come save us. You know what I mean? So like we got to decide amongst ourselves that these are the things we want to see exist, and then help those people do those things. Like
Yep.
I don't ever need performative. That's why I don't like that allyship word. I don't need performative. Like I see you. Like I like what you're doing. Like be in it with me. Be in the trenches with me. Feel my pain when I feel pain. You know what I mean? Like when the server goes down, we're all going down. Know what I'm saying? You invested your nights and weekends to build something that helps me. Like there's a connection and a deep respect that I have for that like you don't get just from like liking a post. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So everyone putting in sweat equity is shout out to y'all.
Yeah. Participation. I mean, that's also one of the things that I found remarkable about your talk about it back at Atmosphere Conf, which is like, yeah, you definitely, I think, literally and figuratively brought your community to that talk, and seeing more. Uh,
Yeah, shout out to Linda. We got
yeah,
another next fellowship next year too for Atmosphere
yeah,
Con 2026.
yeah. So the extent to which more people, when we're talking about tools, you could feel the people who use them and the people who make them. I think that is magical.
Oh yeah. Dope.
Um,
Well, thanks
Thanks,
thanks for
man.
having me on here, y'all.
Yeah. Thank you
Uh,
very much.
Really a pleasure. And yeah, I mean, I've been using Black Sky, the interface, for the entire stream,
Documented.
so people can also see that. Go use Black Sky, everybody. Thank you so much, Rudy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See
Rudy.
you.
Hi, see you. Let's see here. Dan, are we ending now? Are we kicking Rudy out? How do we want to do this?
Yeah, we can end now.
Okay. All right. Well, then thanks everybody else. And I will end the stream, and catch y'all on